this is actually a really funny story. Like my mom, before she had my brother, she had there's this concept called a taemong in Korean, which is like the dream that you have before you have your baby. So apparently she had a dream that like 2 dragons are in like a lake or something, and then they like swirl out of the lake and they just like rise up to the sky or something like that. Because of this dream, like they have this idea that my brother and I are gonna do great things in the world.
I didn't like myself very much in high school, and so in college I have learned that I am someone worth liking, which is good. I don't think I like knew how to like be a confident person or to like be sure of myself, and like how to advocate for myself. And especially through the past year, like I've been put in positions where I like have had to like recognize that like without necessarily having people telling me and giving me validation constantly, that like I'm worth taking up space, and that's been a process, I guess. And then there's the whole counter to like being scared to take up too much space. So that's a learning process, I think.
I definitely had a hard time, as I'm pretty sure everyone does, you know, like late middle school, early high school, just like figuring out who you are and the kind of things that you like. To combat that, like depression, I've had some diagnosis for bipolar 2, which is hereditary. And then I had an eating disorder that was pretty serious all of high school up until about last year. I was in treatment over the summer for 6 weeks. So that has been a journey, a journey to get me where I am now. I was very convinced that I wasn't as sick as I was. Even in treatment, I was like, I'm not sick enough to be here. And having the experiences and being allowed to grow the way that I have, I'm not only like grateful for and lucky to have had, but also just really excited and happy about, because I know that like a lot of people have a lot of hard times, and it's good for me to be able to like know that if I need to help somebody else, I can put them like before these things that I had previously been like struggling really hard with.
This is a fun story. My mom, she got like an English degree from the Philippines. What a great gal. And then my dad, he's like such a rebellious kid. Like he came from like a troubled family and like was on the streets of the Philippines like as a young teenage boy. But so when my parents came to America, like I said, it was just like a kind of like not like a spontaneous thing, but it was something that they hadn't been planning in life, but decided to take the risk. And so when my parents came to America, my mom was like doing English, and she actually came like a few months before we did because we were still sorting out passports and stuff. She used to just like cry every night because it's so hard to like be like an immigrant woman and like teach in an inner city school. Like that is your first taste of America. Like you're just like living in like this stranger's house and they're trying to like accustom you to like America and stuff, but she was having a rough time. My dad, on the other hand, when we did come to America, he never told me this until much later. Actually, probably just like this last summer, he like was telling me about his life, and he was like, yeah, like while you and your older sister were like in elementary school, I didn't have a job, like I didn't have a degree, so I really was just like bumming around and like doing favors for my friends to have money. And like that was like a very touching moment for me, for like when my dad like confessed that to me. Literally, like we were walking through like the streets of Spain. He was like, yeah, like while you were in school, I was literally just washing my friends' cars like in their driveways and like cleaning their houses to like have money for us. And that's something that I guess in like immigrant men never want to confess, because like in our cultures it's very much like the man should be like making all the money and like doing the honorable job. And like for him that was like really hard. But my parents are like very strong. They were very, I don't give them a lot of credit, but they were trying really hard to make things work. A lot of my high school afternoons were like, instead of like doing like the dumb things that kids do, which is like, I don't know, volleyball, chess, I would like have to go home and like be there so that my like very young siblings could like come home and I could like feed them and like tell them to do their homework, etc., etc. Because like my parents were always either like working overtime or like literally like doing night classes or something. So I quote my younger brother. He was like, "You're just like my second mom," and I was just like, "Sure, like you know, I got you." It's like, what is a feeling for when it's like sad and happy? It's bittersweet. There you go. To like see my siblings grow up, especially because I feel like I was so involved in their lives, like when I was like in middle school and high school, and then when I went off to college, I just like don't see them and don't like really hear from them except for when I'm home. Yeah, so it's, I don't know. I'm like really looking forward to like where my siblings go in life, because hopefully they'll be both funner and smarter than me. So we'll see.
In college, I feel like I've really been able to come out of my shell and gain a lot of confidence that I didn't know I had in me before. In part, being away from my family has allowed me to gain that confidence back. Just the friends that I've made here are honestly the best friends that I've had, and the way that they inspire me to be better, they have really helped me to feel more confident in myself. Just the way that we talk to each other and the way that we support each other has really been the best thing that's happened to me in college. It's nice to hear that it's going to be okay. And I don't think like growing up that wasn't something that I always heard. It was like, do this or else, instead of like, do this but it will be okay. I've had a series of assaults, and not just one person, and they've spanned several years. And so those relationships have been difficult for trying to figure out who I am and just how they define me. I've been afraid of relationships and pursuing them due to that. It makes me afraid to reach out and also to put myself in a situation where something could happen. I just take myself out of any potentially risky situations to try to avoid anything happening. I don't want it to stop me anymore. And that's something that I'm trying to learn right now, to kind of move past it, to acknowledge it, but to move past it and not let it define me any longer. What I've been doing recently, after years of kind of struggling with it, I've managed to start reframing myself as a survivor rather than as a victim. And that feels really empowering. But the fact that I felt a victim for so long also shaped me. And I didn't have anybody to go to or talk to during that time, which made it really difficult. There was nobody that I could tell about it. So just being alone in that struggle was difficult. Don't be silent about it. I think it's hard to go to somebody with it, and I know because I was in that position where there wasn't anybody safe that I could turn to. But once I did have somebody to turn to, it was such a liberating thing to have somebody else acknowledge my pain and acknowledge the truth of those events, which wasn't something that I had felt before. Be sure of the truth of those events. Like, no matter what other people say, how you feel after you leave that situation, there is no blurred lines. If you feel bad, like, that line has been crossed. You're not gonna question it if you're with a person who you feel secure with and if everything was consensual. But if you leave the situation unsure and questioning, you are right to think that something bad might have happened.
I wish people knew like that there's more to a person than meets the eye, because I think like I come across as very put together and like I know what I'm doing, and I don't. I think there's like freedom in people recognizing that you are messy. It's like my first ever romantic relationship was just a total mess, and very much is like why I am the way I am, like in relationships and also just like in life. Yeah, so my very first relationship was an abusive relationship, which is a thing I didn't realize at the time. Yeah, but very just like isolated me from the rest of the world, and lost a lot of myself in that. And then the fear that like you completely lose everything because of another person and like their desire to like hurt you is like a very real thing and a very scary thing. Literally everything about me is different because of it. Like this was 6 or 7 years ago now, but like I can literally point to like moments in it where like I drastically became a different person. Part of why I didn't realize that I was in an abusive relationship is because, you know, I wasn't getting punched in the face. It was much more like emotional, mental, sexual, like it was things that I just really didn't know counted as abuse. And I remember the moment actually when I realized that it was more than just like a not great relationship was during a Tufts orientation event about consent and like healthy relationships and stuff. And they like brought in these like performers, I guess, to like share stories of other people's like experiences. And one of the stories, like the woman was saying it and it was just like, it felt like she was like reading my mind and like was just like telling my story. And I think in that moment, I realized that like, if that story is being told and I have that story and that's a story about abuse, then I was abused. A lot of my friends that I have now, my closest friends, are people that I was sitting with like at that event, and they were the ones who were like, are you okay? What's going on? What do you need? There's something about like that immediate support from those people. And it made the process a lot easier because I knew that like I had people who cared, even if they didn't necessarily know like what was going on. They like wanted to be there. And also that like there was just like this safety net that I'd never had before, because I didn't really like, after this relationship I didn't have female friendships, and I didn't really have friendships because I just didn't know how to be friends with people. I was told that as a girl, as a woman, I'm there to make other people happy and like give people what they want. That means that like there was never a moment when I was told like you don't have to give people what they want, or like if you don't want to and then they do it anyway, like that's wrong. We're told in society that like if someone is put together then they're fine, and if someone is not fine then they're not put together, and those are not mutually exclusive things. I still like the response of like, yes, I need help and maybe I'm struggling, but I'm still like my same self who like is very capable and very competent.